Games Radio. I'm your host, Agrod. This is formerly the Peace Academy. Right now it is Monster Academy. It is 10 p.m. on June the 9th in 2018. We're getting ready here to go talk about Steem Monsters and sort of the element of story creation. Tonight's goal is actually to kind of flesh out what it's going to be to create the whole campaign guide and to really try to find teams to help me do this. The teams that I'm looking for is that I have 6 different colors. Each one of those colors is going to need to have a team of people behind it that are writing parts of that story. So I'm going to be looking for folks that are interested in becoming part of the team to kind of build this entire backstory. So we have Azaria is going to be queen of all things current. But I'm also going to I have to build this lore around how did the world work, how did it form, and so I'm kind of trying to build a team of at least 6 different groups to help assemble this. I have one person picked out that I've worked with and hung out with and done D&D stuff with for the last, I don't know, I think it was 26 years. So I have one person that I have picked out for the gold and who I want to have help me. But for the other 5 teams are completely open right now. I read a story by Road to Nowhere that I think might be one of the best pieces of fiction I've read on the entire blockchain in 2 years. That was the Twisted Jester story. So I do have some interest in seeing. Great. It was awesome, right? God, it was so dark. So I have some interest in seeing Road to Nowhere being part of Team Black, but other than that, I'm open. I'm open to trying to find different groups of people that are interested in building out the various communities. So right now in chat, I have a document. So let me copy this link. So this document is the Steem Monsters Campaign setting. So what I think some of you ought to do, maybe I'll put all 3 of these links. Give me 1 second here.
So yeah, you can also, while Agrod's doing this, Jarvie, if mspwaves.com, you will be able to see video if Agrod's got video going, but it's going to be a little difficult to participate in the actual chat portion of it. Sort of a weird little hiccup we have going on, but it should still be quite viable if you want to listen that way.
Either way, they can look at the docs, and I'll just be clear what doc I'm looking at. There's 3 docs that I want to talk about. So the first one is the Wikipedia article. So the Wikipedia article just will show you, like, here's 20 different settings. So let me go read what this is. Dungeons and Dragons campaign settings. So let me read the kind of intro to this. The flexibility of the Dungeons and Dragons D&D game rules means that dungeon masters are free to create their own fantasy campaign settings. For those who wanted a pre-packaged setting in which to play, TSR, Wizards of the Coast, and other publishers have created many settings in which D&D games can be based. Of these, the Forgotten Realms, an epic fantasy world, has been one of the most successful and critically acclaimed settings. Many campaign settings include standard sword and sorcery environments, while others borrow Oriental, Central American, swashbuckling, horror, and even space travel themes. These are official D&D campaign settings published or licensed by TSR or Wizards of the Coast. Some, like original settings Blackmoor and Greyhawk, are no longer published or officially licensed, though all have active fan bases. So what I need is where are these monsters fighting? Actually, one of the questions that I personally have, and I don't know if you guys have a stake in this one way or the other yet, but in the world, if I'm traveling through the Splinterlands, am I seeing like monsters everywhere? Are there free living, roaming monsters, or are they only things that are summoned by the summoners? So, like, in the world, is it only humans or only the summoners? And then I get to arenas, and then I'll see lots of monsters, or am I going to see monsters everywhere? And that to me starts getting to, like, what does this world look like? Now,
I like the idea of seeing monsters everywhere, but then um, when they're summoned, then they fight for you.
Shane?
Well, if there's monsters everywhere and you're traveling, if you take RPG elements, those monsters might attack at any time unless you're on a path.
So I
But that's
mean,
a big
this
deal saver.
it might get like Pokemon elements where you're supposed to travel around and absorb the monsters into your power sphere, or maybe like your spell book that you can then summon. I I don't know. I'm sort of open to how these stories get built, but the biggest thing to me is that we have to have a commonality so that um, if the blue team doesn't want to do that and the red team does, there's at least some reason why magic works one way in the red realm and it works differently in the blue realm. Oh, for those, I guess we can say the very basics because we are starting over. Steem Monsters is a collectible card game that has role playing elements to it, and the focus of the game is that it's a drafting game. So, the way that this thing works is that you get a deck. Inside of that deck are summoners who will have a mana pool and can summon monsters, and monsters who will have stats, and those stats are used to fight one another. Different colors will have advantages versus other colors. Different summoners will have different abilities to buff or debuff teams, the monsters themselves. They'll be able to level. So it'll actually have some RPG elements where your common cards, if you combine them or fight with them, will actually gain experience. And as they gain experience, they'll actually level up and be more powerful. The heart of the game is it's a drafting game, and so what you're doing is you're choosing your summoner to bowl together your team of monsters, and that team of monsters is going to fight somebody else's summoner and team of monsters, and the team that has sort of maximized their benefits while minimizing their risk are presumably the teams that will continue to win week in and week out, where they have tanks that have good healers and support, that have good damage per second, or like attackers that can help inflict a lot of damage. And then maybe even we have a fourth class. So almost all games on the planet have um, a tank who takes all the damage, a healer that replenishes the tank, and what's called DPS or damage per second. And they're the ones that actually do a lot of damage. We have an element where like the order of where you put them actually matters. So the front line is automatically the tank, the game mechanic will be you attack that tank. But we're going to have a class called an assassin, and that assassin, instead of attacking the tank, will attack the back line. So that'll be sort of a special ability that will cost them points, but now you have a chance to include somebody that's going to go kill the healer. So now you have to go make decisions of, all right, how big of a tank do I want to use? How much DPS do I need? How much healing should I do? Is everybody just going to attack the back line, or do I use these creatures to kill the tank first? You kind of build your team to do different things, and then we're going to go figure out how that goes. So there'll be a simulated fight. So the strategy of this is picking your team and designing your team and realizing like you're going to have 10 fights to do in a day. Where do you spend your limited resources? Which fights are you going to pick? Which fights are you going to send your monsters into? Which monsters do you use in which fights? And that's sort of where the strategy comes in. So it's all about using your roster as effectively as possible to build the meanest sets of teams that you can. So that's the basics of the game. And for the as the characters level, they're all going to gain experience. So this game is unique because like if you have some legendary card in Magic the Gathering, it never levels. Nothing ever happens. It's always that exact same card. If you have a legendary like the Frost Giant in this, when he levels, we can make it so that new stories appear. And as that story appears, we can sort of explain the history of the world is that it used to be one whole planet, and then the splintering happened, and it splintered into all these different colors. And the prophecy states that we're all going to go back to this whole world. Season 1 is really going to be about fighting in the Splinterlands as they are. But in Season 2, I hope to have the campaign sort of moving into the prophecy world and looking at sort of the future of what that might look like and exploring different aspects of that. Maybe Season 3 is some weird time travel or other crazy elements. So
So now MTG, the cards stay the same. When there's no, they don't gain any experience when they level, but Dungeons and Dragons, it does. So when you gain experience, does that mean you're gaining new powers? You get more tools, all that?
yeah, so you let me see. Let me go pull this up real quick too.
So the main question that I see in here is, do your cards level if you happen to lose a match? Not necessarily level, but gain a little bit of experience towards a level.
Yes.
Yeah, so your cards won't die. Cards stay safe. We're gonna unveil. This is my version. Yaba has his version, and we're gonna go through some of this. But I don't even know how to start this thing. I don't want to do all the stats tonight. But basically, the way that this thing works is that a common card will get 50 skill points when it at for a mana as like a starting point. Rares will get 55, epics will get 60, and legendaries get 65. And as they level, they'll get more skill points to come in. So what we're going to do is make it so that sort of as they go, abilities start coming in, and those abilities cost some points, and then beyond that, you're going to have you'll have attack, defense, speed, health, magic attack. We're probably going to put in like a magic resistance. We'll probably put in damage resistance or like physical damage resistance. We're still tweaking this a little bit. Yaba's kind of working on that. What I really figured out was how to make it so that so here a level 1 rare. Let's do this.
Okay, wait a minute. I think that this is a great, this is going to go down a massive rabbit hole. Why don't we stick with the, like, we'll talk about it maybe tomorrow night, because tomorrow night you were going to talk about more stuff like this, right?
I know. I just want to say one thing.
Okay.
The way that this is going to work is that like a level 1 epic is going to be something like a level 3 common. So and similarly like so both changing the level and changing the mana cost starts getting your cards to be somewhat equivalent. So here's kind of a sneak peek of what this might look like, how we're assigning points. I know that Yaba is kind of sticking with making it so that the levels and making it so that the rarities and making it so the mana costs all kind of stay close. These points are probably either going to go down or up so that it's either 1, 2, or 3, or we're really going to get into like the hundreds rather than where I stuck us in the 50s. But yeah, we're going to make it so that the changing the level, changing the rarity, and changing the mana cost make it so that these cards can be somewhat equivalent to one another. So the main point, though, another part of this is that like your legendary has 4 levels. So part of what I want to have happen in the actual gameplay is that at level 1, my legendary card. So when I go into my deck, and here's my collection, and if I choose legendary, these are some of the legendaries that I have. So if I click into Angel of Light, right now the only 2 options that I have are Send as a Gift and Combine. What we're going to do is include some more options on the screen so that you can see the backstory and that you can trade it, and there'll be some other options as time goes on for what else is included in here. Like, what are the in-game stats? What are the future stats? Who is the first person to get this? Like, or who is the first person to max level it? we'll have some of that knowledge built off of the chain, put into this kind of screen reader, so that people can get neat details about this. But when I'm level 1 and I click on that button that says backstory, I'll be able to go read about this angel of light. And then when I get to level 2, I'm hoping that the screen will kind of freeze and you'll get a story that pops up here, and the story will be sort of the new part of what has happened because your angel of light leveled up. So as the cards level, we can actually change the story that's going to be part of this. And in order to have that happen consistently, we need a campaign setting. So, so hopefully you get a sense about the cards, that we can equalize them based off of rarity, based off of mana cost, and based off of level. So we have those 3 levers, and those 3 levers can be used to sort of make balanced cards. At the end of the day, a max level legendary that is high mana cost is going to be pretty powerful, but there's no reason why a team of 2 to 3 mana cost cards shouldn't be able to kick its butt if it's designed well and certainly has some buffs against that color, and you've designed your team smartly rather than just put one big monster up. So that's the kind of way that we are structuring the game, so that when you level, now you're going to see more story, and we need these stories to fit with the bigger story arc of, at its very core and basic level, the world was whole, then it split, now there's a prophecy, the prophecy states the world will return, and to me there's something like some kind of mana rift that's keeping the world from coming back together, and the characters, or like the actual people playing this, don't know what's separating the world. Part of what we have to do while playing in the different campaign settings is meet the various characters and some of the non-player characters. I mentioned selfishly, I'm going to put myself in the game as Agrodius the Lightbringer. He's going to be sort of a paladin type archetype that's also an alchemist, and he's going to live in like the university of the White Lands, or the White Color University, and he'll be sort of dean of the college or something of science or of magic arts or of alchemy. And that's my selfish plan for myself in game. And as you go through this sort of white campaign story arc, you're going to run into Agrodius, and you're going to find out he's involved in like tapping mana or using mana or changing mana, and some of that is going to have positive effects on the world that might be benefiting that sort of white color, but maybe is causing damage to, say, the black team, and it's causing them to suffer. So part of the game is going to be like, oh, maybe they're not all good and bad people, but they're all using limited resources, and it's sort of like their decisions are hurting one another or helping one another, and maybe if we can make all these kind of adjustments to the way that behaviors are done, that we can kind of get back to a unified planet. So we have to, but in order to do this well, we really need everybody to be telling, they don't have to tell the same story. Actually, I think part of the fun of this will be like, if you're going through the storyline of Agrodius the Lightbringer, maybe you find out that he's this great champion and really helpful, and everybody in the Ivory Tower loves him and he's great. And then when you read the storyline and it gets to that same part of the story, but now you're in kind of the undead necromancer world, and you're like, this is the biggest horrible person and bastard that ever walked the planet. His magic has caused so much damage and havoc to our realm that alchemy is forever forbidden here, and he is to be killed on sight for the crimes that he's committed. So yeah, it's not necessarily, but what I want,
to bring in the concepts of, what you're talking about is everything we talk about in the Peace Academy. So you can have 2 different, like, what is good or what is bad. So from one perspective, Agrodius the Lightbringer is doing wonderful things, but from another perspective, he's doing horrible things.
Yeah.
So how to bring it together, bring the world back together in harmony.
So Taluman asked
Yes.
the perfect question. How
Yes,
the
he did.
hell are you going to be managing continuity? And so let me show an example of one of these campaign setting guides. So I'll put this link in chat again. So this is the Dark Sun campaign guide. And as I can scroll through this some, and it'll have some pictures of what these people look like, and then it starts going into who's here. So the very first thing that they cover, and I got to go read through like 8 million of these things, is the very first thing they cover is the various races. So they build this with a real, here are your racial traits, and this is how it affects your character or whatever. But, here we have the Aarakocras, and they are winged burnmen, known as the Aarakocras, are a rare sight in the settled parts of Athos. Only Aarakocra travelers, traders, diplomats, and exiles spend much time among the city-states. Personality. A typical Aarakocra is known for his need for freedom, both in the literal and figurative sense, physical description, relations, typical alignment, religion, language, various names, adventurers, and then here are some of the places in Dark Sun that they might refer to. All right, well, that's one of the racial groups. All right, now we go do the same thing where now we go talk about how the dwarves fit in. All right, after the dwarves, we have the elves. How do they fit in? Then we have the half-elves. So they basically go through the various races, half-giants. What else do we have? So then we get into classes. So for in this campaign setting, we have barbarians. We have monks, paladins, scions, psychic warriors, rangers, rogues, sorcerer, wilder, soul knife. For us, we're basically going to have 4 different ones. We're going to have tanks. We're going to have high damage output characters. So you can imagine like a mage or a warlock or an archer. Somebody that isn't designed to take a lot of damage but could slit your throat or blast you with some meteor spell. So we're going to have some of the different classes that we have to talk about, although the classes in the realm are probably going to be different than just the classes of the fighters of the monsters. So like, you could have, who are the merchants? Where does the food come from? Who builds stuff? Like this could be who are all the different people that make up that society. And in the military dictatorship, you're going to have a lot of soldiers that are stirring the pot and fighting a bunch and drinking a bunch. But in like the green territory, those guys are a bunch of hippies that just kind of live in their hobbit holes or whatever. Like the military isn't going to be that big of a thing. So we're going to have different classes that come up in the different realms.
And who are the 4 classes we're going to have?
Well, the 4 fighting classes are going to be tank, DPS, your healer, and assassins. Those are going to be the 4 in game of like what the monster roles might be. But again, like in the campaign setting, we're not going to describe the Lord of Darkness as like a tank. He's going to be a tank, and he's actually going to have a fair amount of damage output because he's a legendary and he's high level and he's got these cool abilities. But when we're like talking about, like if we're going through the black storyline, we're not going to be like, you have encountered the tank Lord of Darkness. He is level 4 and has these abilities. Like none of that will be in the actual storytelling. The storytelling will be, if you're very early in the campaign, you might run into the Lord of Darkness and maybe he's still training. Or maybe we're going back in history and the Lord of Darkness is basically just born and he's not even the Lord. He's just like a Prince of Darkness. And then later in the game, we re-encounter him and now he's a complete and total badass. And so we'll describe him as like, his flame whip erupts in a fiery, devastating torch. Bright enough that even while standing 10 feet away, your summoner has a searing sensation across his hair and almost his eyebrows catches fire. You have an inner desire to go summon your I don't know, your frost giant to go protect yourself, but you know it isn't time yet. Like, the storyline isn't going to be, yeah, he's a level 4 legendary, here are the stats. We're going to have to describe this with words that convey epicness and badassery. So we have to build a campaign setting. And so here, this is part of what I think is really important. The next section of this is currency, weapons, weapon materials. So like in the white, because it's going to be kind of ivory towery, I really like the idea of having alchemy be the primary way that all these monsters are summoned. So if Agrodius were to somehow become a summoner, he would be mixing potions, grabbing components, putting all of these things together to go make a potion that summons these monsters from the depths. But what does sea magic look like? Are you taking seashells and sort of blowing in them, and the magic of the sea pulls them forward? Are you, like, if you're green, do you have seeds and those seeds spring alive and the monsters kind of come forth from the seeds that you've grown? Like, how does magic work in the different areas? And so again, it can be different, but if we have two people telling a story about red monsters, it needs to be consistent.
So one of the challenges, if we have different people telling different stories on the same color or elements, how do we make sure that the voice remains the same?
Well, I don't think that the voice necessarily has to, but there are elements that I do think have to. I mean, I think that part of this is that I want to build, I want to have a set diagram. Let me go. I did this earlier. I don't know if I want to repeat it, but I want to go include the seed of life, and it's like a process of assigning values to a group. And so, shit, I guess I'm going to do this. So go talk for half a second here.
Kyle, man, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be choosing our particular class or race ourselves for us, or if we'll be controlling one. I'm going to mess up your name.
We need to decide what elements need consistency and put them in a chart and go from there.
Yeah, well, what it's going to be is in this document, because I have a document that is our campaign setting, and so like Omi's already put in a whole bunch of ideas for all the different groups entirely, and that's cool. But like what I really want to do, because I actually think her ideas are quite good, and it's a nice place to work off of. But I also want to assign teams, and those teams are going to have sort of what I want to do is put together. Here's your template. The teams have to complete this template. And the template is going to have questions like, what do they value? What is the currency? How does magic work? Who are the famous NPCs? What are the cities? Here are some maps. What elements on the maps do we need? And you guys are actually going to formulate in a very systematic way all the same kind of features or all the same kind of things that we're going to be exploring. So every city or each color will have its own template of like, well, where do the dragons live? What is the culture for the dragons? Who is in charge of the dragons? If there's nobody in charge, how do the dragons function? What are the dragons made of? How do you summon them? What is that magic like? What does it look like? What do the dragons value? What do the gold summoners value? What are their foils?
So then, do you want to develop the teams first and then go through and determine those answers, or do you want to determine those answers now?
Oh God, no! I want the teams to actually develop the answers. What I need to do is, and I was hoping that my friend would be here because he's like, I think he's quite smart and has been playing role-playing games intensely for 30 years. So he I think his name is Bob. He goes by Jester Mage. I've asked him to go help me kind of put together the templates. So I need to go get with Bob and sort of like put in the core key templates that each one of the colors has to do. So we'll have some common history, and people are totally welcome to have their own take on this. So if people want to describe, like, the black team might say the splintering of the world was caused by the reds and their selfishness and their anger, and the red team might say, we've done everything we can to empower the planet and bring it back, but those damn blues, they won't fall in line, and because of that, our planet continues to suffer. Like, what we need is kind of a common agreement that the world is broken and there's some kind of monorift that's happening, and each different team could either have actual knowledge or just kind of suspicion about what they think is actually causing it.
Okay, so what is the timeline of getting these teams together so that we can get to work? I think that is a big question.
I'm hoping that people in here are going to go be the teams. I mean,
well, yeah, we can hope that, but we also need to have someone or somebody take control and say, hey, we need these teams. These teams aren't happening. Red and white may take off, but no one's paying attention to black.
Yeah, so what I'm hoping is that my friend Bob is going to take, although I don't know if Bob has the gift of leadership for this, but I have to basically delegate to somebody, you are the organizer for this. Here is the template I need to build these stories, and then hopefully people can go say, I would like to see, just like Swolsome, he says, I volunteer to write for the Red. So what I'm really hoping is that Swolsome can go work with some other folks who want to go write with the Red team.
Good. So, audience, can I please have you type in who would like to volunteer to help out and for what team?
And I know that there's some people that can't be here, so we're gonna have to collect some folks from other, like, in another manner. So there's probably going to be a post, and hopefully the post will have Swolsome is working on the green team. Swolsome is working on red. Toriko is working on green. Omi is working on water. And as you are drawn to different groups, maybe you're in more than one. I kind of think you should only be in one group.
I kind of agree with that.
It's not so much because I don't think you can write for more than one group, but because I want some of this stuff to kind of be secret from one another. And as you guys develop your storyline, we can build in the backstory of the different tribes into what actually happens in the game with the different legendaries, because all of this is the past, not the present.
Let me hold you back a little bit. We need to make sure we can't really keep everything too terribly secret, because we are still looking for consistency. So we can't have the red group say, and white did all of this, and that's why we're angry at them. And black say, and then red did this, which counteracts something that red said that they, white did. We got to make sure that it's cohesive.
So we need a timeline.
We can't keep it secret.
We need a common timeline. So if people want to go say the invasion of the Reds, so I was thinking that the red group would be called the War Torn, and the derogatory term for them might be the Warts. So you could have, like, the white team put up on year 16 since the splintering, the Warts invaded the white city. And then they could put that on the timeline, and they could describe that. And I guess the red team would either have the ability to then counter that or talk about that. Hopefully it doesn't involve everybody. Maybe there's a couple overseers in this that put kind of some common events, like a plague, or put a giant meteor shower that represents different things to the different cultures. So we could have a couple, here are some common events for everybody, but we could also have people just say, in the year 27, since the splintering, those damn blues they don't attack the green, but maybe they somehow siphon mana from the green land to go build one of their cities, and it causes chaos to them.
I would agree with that. My notice. Yeah. Omi brings up a good call. Maybe there could be an overseer that makes sure that there's not conflicts between the stories.
Well, even if there are, I mean, I like so don't like on the one hand I want consistency, but the world isn't consistent. So like it's sort of amazing to think that like the blue team might say something like that never happened, or yes, we did that, but they're blowing it out of proportion. We didn't. It wasn't some major event. We just tricked on this little mana. We just pulled a little extra mana and we got our city. What's the big deal? So I could totally see some kind of event being like there's some point of fact that something happened, but then perspectives on what happened could be different from the different teams, which is the number one reason why I want people to not be on more than one team. I want them to sort of like root for their team, build the history of their team, have it be sort of the winner's history of their team, but then ultimately also be like totally called into question by other teams. And like maybe there's a neutral party that's like, yeah, we saw the Blues do that. That was terrible. Like different perspectives on the same kind of events that they build.
Can I just make one suggestion?
Hit me.
I mean, it's good to have the colors and whatnot, but I don't think anyone's going to be like, we're the greens, we're the blues. Could we have a very good example would be in Magic. You would have the colors represent different guilds, but the guilds have a name.
Right.
So the writers could come up with different things, because I'm not going to be like, oh, those damn whites, oh, those
Well,
darn
yeah.
greens, oh, those sneaky blues. It just, like, could the writers start to come up with, okay, the reds are based off this, the blues are based off this, they're called
Right.
this, but that's their banner.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
that's
let me.
the whole thing. You got to come up with names and stuff.
So
Right.
in
And
the
taking in consideration that you did say that we'll be able to build teams from different colors means, what's the conflict if I'm working with two different colors that are inherently opposed against each other?
Well, this is about the storytelling, not quite the gameplay. So I want there to be a blue perspective, and I want there to be a green perspective, in part because in the game, in the campaign, we're going to play through the blue perspective, and then we'll play through the green perspective, and then we'll play through the red perspective.
I mean, yeah, these colors are based on elements. So, when you look at gameplay, red is generally aggressive, things like that. Blue has certain qualities, so we can come up with that list so you have a general idea. Actually, I have a list written down. So you have a general idea of where you're writing from, and most of you writers already are aware of that anyway, because you're probably aware of other games like Magic the Gathering.
Yeah, so I think Swolsom's right that not the as a writer, you're going to say, I'm writing the history of the blue group. As a person, they're not going to say simply, I am American. They're going to say, I'm an American, but my parents on my one side, they came from this part of Europe. On the other side, they came from this part of Asia. I grew up in this part of America, not that part of America. This is what I experienced. And I think that you're right. It's going to be a lot more tribal, or there's going to be guilds or something. How you build what the culture is, I think, is up to you. Like maybe the Reds don't have guilds because maybe it's a military dictatorship and they don't allow it. To me, the blue team, I have some really basic elements that I wanted to build into this. So what I was thinking was that the blue team would be the free seas. These guys would be total anarchists. They're seasteading, and the ships can go attached to the main capital ships that have been built. And if they get pissed off at the captain, they just move to a different city by floating or sailing there. The leaders are going to be captains who make up completely their own decisions, and there's going to be lots of good stuff about that, but organizing that is going to be a giant mess. Whereas,
so let's get back to the basics before we keep going down the rabbit holes of what, this does this and this and this and this and this and this. But let's get back to the basics, and let's build a game plan on this first step.
so the very first step is a little bit of education. So the education is basically saying all the there's a history that's common. The world was splintered, or the world was whole, then it splintered. The prophecy states it's going back whole. We have 6 different colors that used to be all one group, but now they kind of live amongst themselves in these isolated territories, and they are both hurting one another and helping one another in these kind of weird setups. There's this very uncomfortable balance that mostly happens because everybody has a weakness versus one of the other groups. It might make tons of sense that with the red team, that is a military advantage that they have over the whites. The whites might not actually be attacking the blacks so much as they're siphoning off some energy from them using alchemy. And the black team then has no choice, because even though they're undead, they still want to keep living in this afterlife. They suck extra life out of the green. Well, the green now has some level of starvation that's happening, so they have to go after the blue, and you can see how some of this shit kind of like unfolds. So there's some natural antagonists. There might even be some natural common ground that these groups can get. And so from a standpoint is I need it sounds like what I need is we need to go create the different teams. Those teams are going to build into different areas. I would like them to stick with only one culture to begin with. And there's going to be a template that I'm going to provide, and everybody has to go fill out that template that has some details of what is their culture like, what are the major cities, make up some, and in that culture, you could have guilds, you could have pirate captains, you could have military dictatorship. I envision the black team as a sort of like the head of that would be Necropolis. There would be pure socialism. The leader would be some kind of lich king, and you would have this like class of uber powerful dudes, and then a lot of like minion-y types running around. So people need to go kind of come up with, what is my group called? What are some of the major events that happened that shaped that group? But they basically just have to go through and fill out the template, because how currency works in the red world might be totally different than how it works in the green world, and how magic works is going to be different. So how weapons and combat, what kinds of commerce happen are going to be totally different.
Cool. So I think a good first step is to get the teams built. How long do you think it would be before templates would be available to the groups?
I imagine that I can get out a template for what I think we need to build in 3 or 4 days, I think.
Okay.
I need to go look through. So like when I look through that Dark Sun campaign, I'm going to go look through and say, all right, what are the key elements that are part of this? Currency, culture, classes, weapons, kinds of combat, storylines, NPCs, and then I'm going to go look at another one, and they'll say, oh, architecture is really important. All right, great. So now I have to add architecture. And then I'll look at another one, and they're like, how does magic work? And I'll go put that in as a template piece. So everybody, you got to give me, in that Wikipedia article, there's literally 20 campaigns that are part of D&D. And my plan is to go look through the table of contents and skim through 20 of those books to find out what are all the major pieces that we have to know for a campaign. And then I'm going to task you guys with creating all of those different parts of the campaign guide.
Okay, so perhaps a good timeline would be maybe Monday we put out a post trying to recruit for different color teams. Give that a week or two while you gather the templates, and let the team sort of talk amongst themselves about the colors. And then as they get the templates, then you can actually get some meat going.
Yeah, maybe I can even make. I'll move the writers section out of that top section. I'll move the writers section down to its own section, and then I'll put each one of the colors of teams. I'll leave it open to the public for right away, but eventually I'll give you a red, green, blue role, and then only the people of that role can see what's happening in that room.
There you go. There you go.
And then I'll be the organizer of each team. And what we'll do in the Discord is just create different channels for each team.
Yep. And then in the writers channel, I'll have what I really want to do is put together a timeline. And so on that timeline, you guys there will be like 5 major events, and I'll explain what those events are, and then everybody gets to have their own interpretation of those events. And then I'm also going to ask people to go put into the timeline things that they did that helped them but hurt some other color. And it shouldn't all be just against your enemy color. But like I was describing, the blue summons extra mana from the red to go light a fire to build the forge to get one of their big floating cities built. But that makes all the red teams suffer. So you guys, I need everybody to go submit just like 1 or 2 examples, maybe even 3 examples of major events in the background or in the history that the different colors did to go build. This was a tomb, and this character died, and then this happened. This was a major obelisk that they built to the gods. This is what happened. Oh, I guess we have to put religion into this too. Who do these people worship? All that sort of stuff.
Cool.
So, Zarya, will you go make? That's the Steem Monster team apparently worships some money, because you guys have sent us a bunch of it. What I want to do is put together the. Will you actually like right now hop into the other Discord and go make a team for each color? And if you guys want to be part of that color, please step into the different rooms and just type here, and we'll give you the role. And then at the end of the week, after the post will go out maybe on Monday, at the end of the week, we will close the room to anybody that hasn't gotten that role yet.
I'm not going to make a gold one though, because you said you're doing that, right?
Well, I'm going to be involved, but me and Bob probably aren't. We're going to be looking at sort of this whole stuff as a whole of like what major events and the templates and shit. So I know that Bob is going to be involved in the gold, but he like if people want to be involved in the writing the gold backstory, they should certainly feel welcome to do so.
Okay.
Not gender. This is post-gender, Fierstekin. We are all androgynous beings in this universe. That's not actually true. Okay.
So what does happen if we have a blue card self-identify as a white card?
Yeah, we're not going there.
God.
What I do.
We're getting complicated.
Well, it's funny. I do actually want to have. I want to make them change teams at some point. So, like, if you guys build in, what you should have. Like, I know your question was in jest, but it's actually a cool one. You know, one of the things that I plan on having happen is Agrodius the Lightbringer at some point should either die, get infected with the burn, or suffer some kind of thing that eventually consumes him and takes him to a different team. And so
that's an interesting idea.
And in the game, if it's like a legendary or something, we could actually have triggers where if you level your Frost Giant up all the way, then you find out that the Frost Giant has turned on his community, gone insane, and goes from blue to red. And then we might even be able to go trigger events that would give players who have maxed their Frost Giant, they could go get a Soulbound card that's kind of a Frost Giant, but now it's level 1 of a different team and kind of has different stats and powers.
Question: will the summoners be similar to planeswalkers, where you have different variations of planeswalkers? Like you'll have Elion, I can't remember, Garek. Like you have different versions of Garek, where he'd be black and he would be green. Different sets.
Well, with the exception of the cards that we kind of make change on purpose, the summoners are going to be different characters. You know, you can see the summoners already. Lyanna is your green chick. Lyanna is actually my wife, so whoever writes green, please say nice things about Lyanna, or I'm in deep shit. But all the different colors will have summoners, and those summoners, you know, some of them might be undead wizards, and some of them might be normal humans. And I have my kids are going to be drawn into this too. One of them is like a half dragon that I think I'm going to make part of the red team, and so you're going to have to write some stories for like this kid half dragon that's not quite a human. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but
I was asking because I didn't know if, like, in the future, like in different sets, like we're going to have another Stormbringer, but he might be blue-white, or he might be green, or he might be black. Like you were saying about Agrid, the Lightbringer, like he could become a black card in a different set.
yeah, but you don't need to worry about this now because all this stuff is history. So you could conceivably talk about the Phoenix was once blue, or was once like a pet of an alchemist, but then got powerful enough to be on their own. I mean, there's ways to go build in, even in the history, that cards swapped teams at some point, or, you know, during the giant monosurge of 215, you know, the Angel of Light was actually it was a demon, but there was so much mana that surged through her that she was sort of reborn as some angelic creature.
Let me just say, what you're building so far is amazing.
It's got some shit to it. I think it's got legs, and I think when this thing hits, and we have all these teams, and they're filled with really creative people, we're gonna build something awesome. And so my real goal is to go run through all of this and just try to push you guys to not just accept the story as you've written it, but then say stuff like, all right, well, what does that character desire? What happens when they win? What happens when they lose? What is driving them? What are their values? Why does commerce work like this? How did that magic happen? Like, show me that in your mind. And so a lot of what I have to do is sort of run around and, you know, test some of your basic theories, like, you know, suspend disbelief for a moment and just be like, can I see that working the way you've described it? And then collectively, we as a group are all going to come together and say, look at what we've built. And I think it'll be awesome because there's a lot of talented writers here.
Yeah, this has some legs to it. This is definitely interesting.
All right.
I'm sorry. I'm sitting here thinking of all the back work and the timelining on it. Okay.
Okay, so who wants to come talk to us? Who's got questions? Who wants to come on air and poke our brain or say, well, what about this? What about that? Who's coming on?
I made the teams in the Steem Monsters Discord, so you can sign up over there.
All right. Globo, why don't you come hop into the channel and we can go chat some. Global Cop. Yeah, Torco, I don't know if you can come on. Where's Globo? I don't know what he's listening on. There we go. Globo, you there?
Yes, I am indeed. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, what are your questions? What are your comments?
Well, I think it's an awesome game. Awesome in, um, how would I say, entrepreneurship? My English sucks today. But I still, after all this time that I listen to you, still don't really get it. And it may just be my limited intelligence or something. So I know it's a game. There are cards, and can uh, it, being a danger to just boring everybody else to death. Um, the aim of the game, as I understand it, is to what to win a game via cards that I don't get it. So I bought a pack of cards. Now I'm sitting on it, and I don't know what to do with it.
Well, you know that the game doesn't currently function, right? This is
Okay,
an alpha.
okay.
Globo is maxed on my Discord, and he's. I can pull up my desktop audio some too. Will you just say anything again, Globo?
1, 2, 3 test.
Hopefully
One, two,
that's a
three
little bit
test.
better. Okay, so here's the deal. The game doesn't quite work because the game is an alpha. All of the stats are ideal. I believe they're coming out tomorrow for what our sort of initial proposal is. The way that you play is you will pick a summoner and and he will have some mana and the fight
All right.
will
Let's
have.
see.
Yeah,
I have
explain.
10 powerful summoners, and I combine those cards and make them, let's say, more powerful. So then what?
So your more
Ex-
powerful summoner will be able to give your monsters bigger buffs and actually be able to summon more monsters. Every monster is going to have a mana cost. So in Magic the Gathering, you have a deck of 60 cards, you get a random hand and I say, I play this card, you play that card. I get a new card, okay, I'm going to play this one. And you say I'm going to play this one. Like the blockchain at the stage of where that is can't do that. So maybe at some point we can connect this to Unity games and we can tie this thing into like much more powerful tools and we could actually build a Hearthstone or something. But those kinds of things take millions of dollars and like that is beyond the scope of what we can do, especially because we're tied to a blockchain. What we can do though is we can say, all right, the summoners are going to have a mana pool and the monsters are going to have a mana cost. And every day, if depending on the level of your summoners, they might have 50 mana. So that's just a number. Don't hold me to this. I'm just spitballing here. But they
So
have.
do mind you explain to those of us who are very ignorant what a mana is?
So mana just describes how much magic you have in you. So
Okay.
like a super powerful wizard like Gandalf or Elminster or Merlin, who's an epic level magician, would be able to go have a giant mana pool of some 100 and he could summon all of the biggest monsters every single day and not get tired. Some little pipsqueak that just got out of Monster Summoner High School can't do all that epic shit. He's going to be able to summon a couple animated corpses, and that's the end of his mana pool. So the game is going to be all right. You're going to enter a tournament, and you're going to have 25 mana to spend. Now you could summon that. That's going to be the mana cap. And if you're thinking about like a football game, when you're drafting a league to go play fantasy football, you might have a salary cap. Um,
Uh-huh.
so like you can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to take all the best players. I'm going to take everybody on the Patriots because they're the best players out there." You're going to say, "Oh, I guess I have to take some Miami Dolphins, and I guess I have to play some of these scrubs from the Buffalo Bills." What we are doing is making it so that in this is a drafting game. So what you are going to do is take your summoner. The summoner will have a mana pool, and you're going to say, okay, in this fight, I'm going to bring this summoner. He's going to summon the Lord of Darkness, and that Lord of Darkness is going to tank for him. I'm going to get
So,
an Enchantress of the
so
Night.
Ak, well, what Isaiah said earlier, that it is almost like a chess game because it's not just about putting cards or something. No, you have to be strategically aligned to your team if you have one to beat your opponent or another team, right?
Yeah, the whole game is about strategy, and it's what it's
China
really
chess.
about is drafting a D&D party. So like in D&D, you typically have like 5 or 6 people that play, and those 5 people, one of them is going to be your main tank who's going to sit there and bang on the monster, and the monster is going to bang on them. They might not do that much damage, but they can sit there and get hit all day and not die. You're going to have some wizards, and those wizards are going to sit far away from the combat, launching spells in to either screw up the enemy, debuff them, or literally just cast fireball and melt a whole crowd of them. You're going to have a healer that could sit there and either heal just the tank or heal your entire group. And in our game, you're also going to have an assassin, and that assassin is going to sneak behind the tank and start killing the people that are behind the tank, which are presumably your healers and the other characters that are causing a lot of damage. So
I hate to interrupt you, but my doorbell just rang, so I have to answer this. But thank you very much for having me. It explained a lot to me. Muchas gracias, señor.
yeah, you're welcome. So I mean, ultimately, just for people to know, you're going to have a cap of how much mana you can spend in a given day, and you're going to have your monster pool, and you're going to bring your monster pool, and you're going to have to decide how to build the best decks. And you're going to have, a number of fights that you can do, and you can't just spend all the mana all the day, or you can't just summon only the most expensive creatures, in part because you have to put them in more than one fight. So if you put them all in one fight and you blow all your mana in that, then you're going to get your ass kicked in the 9 other tournaments of that day. And if you put it into if you balance it too much, you might get your butt kicked because none of them were strong enough. And so this is a game about sort of managing the resources that you have to be as effective as possible, and trying to outwit other players that have some of the same conditions, though maybe not the same cards.
What determines the amount of mana that you get?
How much you actually can spend is going to be based off of what level your summoners are. So I don't want to be held to these numbers because we haven't really looked into this part of it all that much. We're still working more on just kind of the fighting of the monsters themselves. But imagine a level one rare summoner is going to go get 10 mana. And then by the time that he's level 8, he's going to have 30 mana. And so when it comes time to go do combat, a 30 level a character that has 30 mana could literally summon 15 mana cost 2 monsters. So you could zerg the shit out of your opponent. You could just overwhelm them with lots and lots of these little creatures. You could also conceivably go get 5 level 6 monsters. And so now you're sort of saying, I have a big tank and a big healer and a big DPS and a big assassin and maybe even a big off tank. And that's your party. And then maybe you say, screw that. I'm just going to go with 3 big dragons and like 1 or 2 little healers. And that's how I'm going to spend my mana. And that's what you can contribute to either that one fight that has a 30 mana cap. So maybe what we'll do is like on a big grand tournament, we could make it so that you have 40 mana to spend. And then alternatively on some of the smaller daily tournaments where it's not like the big weekend one that's worth 1,000 SPD, maybe in some of these smaller ones you might only have 12 mana or 8 mana, or we'll make it so that the sort of conditions of that fight keep changing. Okay. So, I don't know. Hopefully I haven't lost everybody yet. But let's get back to the storytelling part, because that all of that was a bit of an aside, because I wanted to do more of this stuff tomorrow. What I'm really trying to do is say, the game, if what you're doing in the game is picking summoners and picking monsters to fight, like that's good. It's certainly sure as hell better. Actually, that Thirstican image of Chinese chess isn't that bad. Um, but the um, but I think what I need is to make sure that this game is as immersive as possible. So like while you're sitting there like picking your teams, I don't want you to just be like, "Oh, what are the stats for this? What are the stats for that?" I mean, that is a chunk of that, but I also want your imagination going of like I'm summoning the Lord of Darkness. The Lord of Darkness comes in this misty cloud. Behind him is this undead priest that kind of lumbers, and finally there's a twisted jester with a set of knives that he eyes his opponent. Like I need there to be a visual to this and a story behind this, and almost like an opera, where like the green team has some long-lived vendetta against the black team because the black team has been oppressing them forever. And the blue team is this team of anarchists that does whatever the hell they want, and that's part of the reason why they are so violently opposed to this sort of military dictatorship of the red team. And so there's actually some real, not just like they hate them, they hate everything they represent, and they're horrible, and that it's like this real raw anger that comes out when the blue team talks about the reds. So there's got to be like some story and some drama um, to go immerse people into this world. Shane, Azaria.
I'm sitting here watching the chat go by, trying to pick out questions. I did see one. Where was it? Kalamam asked, "What's the most important things for us to do right now?"
In regard to what? Just telling this story or building this story?
I'm not sure. That was just what it was out there. And the legal Omi asks, "Will there be a legal deck side?"
The deck is going to be all the cards that are in the game, and that's going to keep growing. But again, you're not limited by the cards that you have in your possession. You're going to be limited by how much mana all of your summoners combined have, and you're going to be limited by how big the fights are in any tournament. I mean, if you have a low mana pool, but in the week there's like in that given day, so mana is going to go reset every day. So the next day you would have 10 more fights to do and a couple dailies in your campaign. You should have plenty of shit you can do, and maybe even some one-on-one PvP. We're going to try to build that in there too. So you'll have things that you can do, but it's not limitless. And you'll have monsters you can fight, and maybe some of that PvP doesn't add experience, so it doesn't give you an advantage. You're just kind of like play testing your deck and play testing the mixes and whatnot. It's not about how many cards you have, it's about how good do you resource manage those cards, and how quickly can you get your lower level cards leveled up, so that they're more powerful, and that means you have to win more fights. So that means that you have to be as strategic as possible as you're using your decks. I mean, if you're brand new to the game, you're probably going to spend most of your time fighting easy dailies to try to just get the experience and keep them rolling. If you're really advanced, you're probably going to spend most of your time in guild PvP trying to go kill epic teams, or maybe in guild PvE where you're all trying to kill Exile, because he's going to be our first heroic boss that the guilds will fight.
All right, I have two more. I got a couple more questions here.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
I just saw a question from Jarvie about benefits for the writers. You see it?
I don't see the question for benefits for the writers.
He says, "Let's talk benefits for the writers. I have a few professional writers I am talking to who are considering writing. Monster World account is going to help get them money, but it won't be much. Mostly I tell them it's for love of the game, but also let's talk benefits."
Yeah, so I don't quite know. So my biggest challenge financially. So right now I'm sitting here. Let's have a little financial discussion here. Right now in the account, there's 23,525 SBD, and in for the Steam, I've raised 12,940, and for Steam Power, I have 1,000. The overall, let me go. I have a. I don't want to necessarily show that. It's probably about $70,000. So in product development, that is money. It's not infinite sums because programmers cost money. And my biggest challenge right now is that I don't know what my programmers are going to cost me. So fighting is I have to build a back end for that, and then I also have to build like a UI for that. And both of those aren't necessarily going to be cheap. So I have to the two highest priorities that I have right now are building trading into the game, and I have to build the fighting into the game. And I don't know what it's going to cost me. I submitted a spec sheet to a developer team. It's actually the Degen Sloth, the guy who built Zapple. He's got some, I don't know, 30 odd developers underneath him. And I'm waiting to hear back on what he's going to tell me that it costs to build the market. And then once I have that, I can then start thinking, okay, if this is what it costs on one of these smaller projects, what does it cost on one of these bigger projects? Because fighting is going to be, if we're going to do campaign mode, one-on-ones, dailies, guild PvP, and guild PvE, there's going to be a lot of interfaces that we have to build and fighting mechanisms for that, and it's going to cost money. And the biggest challenge is I don't know how much money that's going to cost me. So that's what I got to wait for before I could say, like, if I knew that the development was going to cost me $5,000, then I could be like, I got $70,000 at this very moment to help build out story and content. If I knew that it was going to cost me $60,000, I'd say, all right, I got $15,000 to go build out story and content. My biggest challenge right now is that I have no idea what it's going to cost. It could be in the thousands. It could be in multiple tens of thousands. And I'm waiting on quotes of what they think it's going to build. And then we have to build one of the smaller pieces, which is the market trading inside of the game. And then we can see how close did our estimate come to the actual, and then we can actually start budgeting for what the full product is going to cost. And I don't know yet. So it's hard for me to look at you and say, all right, all these teams are going to earn this. I mean, I think that I have a budget of several thousand Steam to go hand out to go build these kind of different parts of this. I also don't know just how big my template is yet. So if my template was asking you for 2 paragraphs, I'd say, oh, I can go give everybody 10 SBD and call it a day, or give everybody 10 decks, and that's good. If my template is going to be something like a couple paragraphs of world events, and then I need diagrams built for their value system, and then I need to know all the cities, and everybody has to have 10 major NPCs, and I need cultures and weapons, and it ends up being like 15 pages or less. I don't know, maybe 4 to 10 pages per team, and it's got to go through a couple revisions. I mean, I don't know. I could see spending thousands of dollars on this for 6 teams to do this. So, I
want to move this along because we're getting a ton of questions that do need to be asked. So the basic idea is once you know what the development costs are, then you'll know the chunk of what can be put towards content.
Yeah, I mean, it's at least several thousand that I'll spend. I just don't know beyond that.
Okay, Toriko's been asking a question, and it's actually a pretty good question, and it's been passed by a few times. How is the writing of the lore going to coincide with the contests on the particular cards? How are those going to intertwine?
Right now, the contests for the cards are going to stick with the commons, and the commons are not major story arc characters. So when you write the story arc of a common, you can stick them in their one little village and you can kind of describe whatever the hell you want, and it's not really going to affect everything. If we have to, we can change the name of like a city or town, but like the fire beetle is not going to impact the decisions that the phoenix makes when dealing with the rulers of various kingdoms. So to me, we can go build the common cards um, with all that much threat to consistency. So just keep building. We'll keep running the contests on the commons where we can kind of get some experience where it's lower stake, doing kind of crowdsourced authoring before we get to some of the rares and the epics. And then the legendaries we're going to keep in-house to go build some secrets into what gets revealed.
And then just to answer First Stickin's question, there is a card trading platform being built soon. Trademark is the answer, but it sounds like it should be ready by July. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been saying July. I have some hope that it's easier. It's like faster than that. I kind of think it's going to only take us a week or two, but I'm going to say publicly it'll take us through the first week of July to go give me some extra time. But I hope it doesn't take that long to get trading up. And just to be clear, my intent is to go take some small percentage of all trades as part of that trading house, and we're going to go use that money not to go buy Lambos, but we're going to use that money to pump up the tournaments that happen on predominantly the weekends. What I'd really like to see is that every Saturday there's 1,000 SBD tournament that players get to fight and partake in.
Block Curator is asking, what's a projected timeline for completing the backstories? Tonight was the first meeting of that. I saw you've been in here, so you probably did hear. So we're getting the teams together this week. Aggro is going to get the templates for those teams. And then from there, once we know the teams, we can actually set an actual timeline for the backstories.
Yeah, some of that's going to be like, just how big is this template? I mean, I think the template is going to end up being 6 to 8 pages per team. So we're not talking like 1,500 pages here. We're talking 6 to 10 pages per team of what does fighting look like, what are the values, what are their weaknesses, what's the religion, how does magic work, what are the customs, who are some of the major NPCs. I don't know, maybe it's even 15 pages per group, but it's not 100 pages per group. So I'm going to need, basically one chapter of a book per team to go describe their realm.
Jarvie is saying, I'd have to get Monster World stories up to a few dollars of votes in order to keep writers going and some additional rewards. But if they jump in on this because they believe this is going to go big time and there'll be an audience.
Yeah, and like the other part of this is that we're building credits, and like I don't know how I'm going to do this with the backstory yet. Maybe it's going to play into the campaign and we'll give credits all throughout the campaign. But for the people that are building, like let's say you build the story for the Fire Beetle. You enter the contest, you win the contest. Your story, when we go into the card, so why don't I hop into this card? When I hop into, I don't want to do that for this. Here's the Fire Beetle. When I click into the Fire Beetle, there's going to be a button here for the people that can see it. It'll be next to send as a gift or next to combine, and it'll say backstory. And I'll click on backstory, and the story that you write will appear in this card. And not the entire thing, because it's going to happen over a variety of levels. But by max level 10, your full story should appear. And then inside of that, we'll attribute it to you. So part of what we'll do is point people back to your web page so that if, I don't know, Block Curator, if he's the one that wins the Fire Beetle contest, then it'll actually point to his blog page in our game so that things that you do out of game will appear inside game, which then might bring them back to your page outside of game. So, like that. I mean, part of what we'll do on top of getting the different writing teams money for what they're doing, I'm also going to get you guys exposure through our game portal so that everybody can see what you're working on.
Cool. So a lot of information thrown out there. I think we got a good starting point for this first meeting. So, boy.
What do you think I should pay for 15 pages of background story?
Well, this is an actual deal. I don't offhand know the going rate. I know for approximately 500 words, if you were to buy an article, you're probably looking at. Ron's probably not too. Ron might be a little high.
$4,000 for one chapter?
You're for one chapter, depends how many words that is. A high quality writer is going to get you it's going to hit you in the pocketbook pretty good.
Ain't nobody paying no goddamn $4,000 for one chapter. You guys got to be out of your mind. There's not. I don't have. What is that? 6 times 4. I don't have $24,000 to go put to this. I mean, my guess is that my budget for the writing part of this is probably $3,000 to $5,000. I mean, I have interfaces to build, product teams. I got to get music that's going. I need animations. If people are expecting $4,000 for each section, the answer is no.
But I'm not arguing against that. But at the same time, if you don't have a story that hooks people, you can have the greatest backend in the world. You know what I'm saying? The story and how immersive it is going to be just as important as all the back-end stuff.
Yeah, let's see. My guess is that by the time all of this is said and done, and I haven't run numbers by Yaba, so I don't want to be held to anything, but my guess is that at max I'm going to have something like $500 to $1,000 per color per team. That's what I think this will look like. But I don't know. Some of that's going to depend on quality, some of that's on quantity, some of that's on a ton of shit. And then, I got to start building campaigns around this stuff too. So I got to be frugal, especially because of how ambitious this whole thing is. So if you're doing this because you want $1,000 like for your team, then you're probably not quite the guy I want anyways, or quite the person. I mean, this is going to be some mix of like labor of love with actually getting money, with actually getting cards, with getting built into the game and recognition. Like if you're here because you want $4,000 in a chapter, I can't do it, and I wouldn't do it anyways because that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm doing parts of this Kickstarter right now. So like there's a post right now. Actually, is Fierstekin still here? Yeah, Fierstekin's still here. So look, there's a sweet post, and I just launched this tonight. So this is the boss fight, the heroic boss monster fight for the group guild PvE was won by Exile, and he sniped it with 650 Steem is what he purchased, and Neoxian bid 600 Steem, and so I didn't want to kick Neoxian out. So I said, look, let's build you in. We're going to go build the campaign mode. So Neoxian is going to be a dragon that's at the end of the gold campaign. And so now I'm going to have a couple other campaigns for the blue, the black, the green, the red. And right now I've put out 600 Steem as a bid for this because I already had one bid. In fact, I've had 3 bids that were that high. And then what I did is I also made it descending. So if you bid on day 5, it goes down some, or actually I just give you 100 booster packs with it. And if you bid on day 6, I'm going to give you 200 booster packs with it. So the Steem is I'm doing Kickstarter aspects to this. I'm kind of worried about going out to the normies and asking them to participate in this and build stories with this and all that. If they don't have a Steam account, there's not an easy way to get one. So I'm a little hesitant. I'm going to try to work with either block trades um, or an unsteam to go build an API to help people build accounts instantly. But like the Kickstarter to me, as much as like I made $21,000 with a game for Kickstarter before, I believe in the premise of doing it that way, but um, how to get normies into this that aren't already into crypto is actually quite a mystery because there's no easy way to sign people into this platform. So we're going to look at it. I just don't know how to do it yet. So in the meantime, if you would like to be built into this game, the post that I just put into chat is the single best way for you to actually become a boss fight actually in game. And I imagine that I'll do other things like, oh, you would like to be the military leader for the red team? That's fine. You're not actually a boss fight. Maybe that's fewer bucks. It's not going to be 600 Steam at that point. Maybe that's 100 Steam. Or maybe you want to be a legendary card. Okay, maybe that's not 600 Steam. Maybe that's 200 Steam. And I'll release these things over time. It's not going to happen right away.
When you click on a card, you're going to get their backstory. For the common cards, where on the website will you look for the team's backstory?
I think the backstory is going to get built into the game. Yeah, Fierce again. I hope you bid to go be one of the boss monsters in this. I would love to go build some mean fucking Viking into the game that people shake in fear of. I could see that working out pretty well. But maybe you want to be a legendary in the game and actually have your own, Viking card and be part of either the blue or the white team or something. I could imagine that happening too. But some of you guys actually have, some of you are whales, and hopefully some of you are going to have some pockets to say, I want to be built into the game. And I promise you that's not going to my Lambo fund. That's going to game development, tournaments, and script writing and stuff like that. What was the question that you just asked me, Shane?
Phil, I forgot.
Yeah.
I asked it.
Okay, Zari, what'd you ask?
Where is the backstory for the colors going on the website?
I think the backstory I think a lot of this backstory goes into the campaign of the game. So like it's not going to live directly on the cards. Like when you go into the campaign, ideally all this shit would be like video, and I'm going to get animations and all that stuff done, but the stuff that I'm looking at, if I wanted some freelancer from the middle of the desert to go build a video for me, it's going to be like $1,000 for a minute or two. And I'm looking at some studios to go build it. It's probably somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000 to go get animation. Eventually, if I make millions of dollars with this, I'll go build animations into all of this. And this game kind of goes between fighting and cutscene and fighting and cutscene, and sort of plays like a movie in the sense that like it's kind of like I envision something like Final Fantasy, where your characters fight the boss, kill the boss, and then you get some cutscenes showing you what a badass you are. But I also understand why, like PUBG, they just put up winner, winner, chicken dinner, because it's expensive as hell to go build these things. So where does this live? I think it's going to be built into the campaign setting. Maybe word for word, like we're not going to put up, well, the white team's values are this. They're broken up into this. But like you'll find on the different maps, here's the different communities you can interact with. You'll actually run into Fierstekin the Great, the Viking ruler of the ice planet or ice realm or ice city. After you leave there, you'll go to the green team and you'll find Toriko the Bold. People are going to go like hopefully pay to put themselves into this so that I can pay artists and pay musicians and pay animators and pay storytellers and build this thing into like a really immersive story.
So, I'm going to ask you a hard question here.
Oh God.
One of the things you've been saying was, this isn't going to be pay to play or pay to win. but it seems to be heading that direction.
Well,
Uh,
it's certainly pay to get involved in the story, but like eh, I think that the people that pay money will have an advantage early. Like, if you buy $5,000 worth of cards, you're going to go have everything maxed out. And then when you go be maxed out, you're going to go enter some of the PvP, like the really high ranking PvP, and you'll enter some of the guild PvP, and you'll be in a better starting position than everybody else in the game. But you're also not getting experience points. You're not getting as much value. Your cards aren't going to gain value over time because you will have already maxed them out. So you're going to miss out on part of the benefit of playing in that you actually level these cards as you go. And all of the story gets revealed just by combining cards rather than through some of the play. So there's some net loss, but the thing that ultimately keeps it from being completely pay to play is that whenever you enter a fight, and I might distinguish this between, there's practice games where you don't use mana, and then there's real games where you do use mana. When you do use mana, then your monsters level, and every time that you shove them in a tournament every day, if they in the first round, the plan is for every round that they are able to enter, they'll get another experience point. So you start with level 1 monster. Maybe you go enter a tournament that doesn't really have a very big prize pool, and that way there aren't all that many people attracted to it. You put in some of your monsters. They were able to make it into the third round. They all get 3 experience points. Now they're leveling up. So without having to buy ass loads of cards, now you're starting to get somewhere. You bought the starter pack, and now you go play in the dailies. The dailies are going to be sort of lower level quests, and they're going to give you, we're going to figure out a way so that they can earn you packs over time so that you don't necessarily have to buy all the packs. You could just grind your way out of it. So initially, when you're fighting and it's day one, and Bernie Sanders not only does he feel the burn, but he maxes out every single card, and maybe he's able to win the first tournament because of that. But a month and a half later, people that have spent some money but not nearly as much, now they're actually able, after having fought in a bunch of these, now they have decks that are either approaching max level or have a lot of max level cards. And then a couple months later, the people that really didn't spend very much money at all, they're up there, and now their cards are max level. And that 10-year-old that bought in on day one, dad gave him $5 and he bought 5 booster packs. He's been playing the dailies every day. He gets his free packs. He gets more cards. He uses just his daily interaction and his mana pool to level them. Now he's actually finally gotten, after something like a year, now his cards are all max level, and there's a level cap, right? So that level cap is going to make it pretty hard for there to just be complete one-sided victory. Yes, it will give an early advantage to those that want to spend money and combine cards and do it that way, but eventually everybody gets to the same level, and then it's no longer about who had the best deck, or I'm sorry, it's no longer about who spent the most money. It's now about who is best at sort of resource management and can kick butt that way.
So that is fine. By the way, we're having some audio problems. You're sounding very pixelated and distorted
Here,
to me.
hold on.
And
Let me
I think
let me pop out for just 1 second. All right. Whoa. Now where the fuck did my audio go? I guess the users can hear me, but the people here can't. Voice overlay, voice activity. Hello, hello? Shit. Hello? Hello, hello. It's showing me connecting. This is live radio is the worst. All right, let me show what it's showing. Crop, Control A, Control Copy. Boop, boop, boo. Hello? Live on air. Hello? Hello, hello? Still connecting. You guys can hear me on the website. Discord voice is down. Rolling outages. Okay. Well, I can't hear Shane and I can't hear Azaria. You guys can hear us through the website, and you can hear us. So, all right. Well, it's 11:35 anyways, so this is probably a good time to go wrap this up. So what I want to do next is everybody that is interested in writing for one of the teams and know that the price for this is not set, but there will be some money available. It is in the hundreds, not in the thousands of dollars, potentially payable through packs if you prefer that. I want you guys to go into the Steem Monsters Discord. So let me go get a quick link for that. Hold on. Generate new link. Copy. Go back into PAL. Okay. Oh, hey, are we back? Azaria, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, fucking A, that was terrible. Okay, so here's what I want to do. If you guys want to participate, what I want you to do is go into the Discord room, and Azaria, you were able to make the different channels?
Yep.
Okay, so what I want you to do is go into the color that you would like to write for, and just go say hello or put in something really small. And then the mods in there will tag you with a new role that we create just to go give you that color. We're going to give people a couple days to go put out a post, explain what we're doing, and for me to build the template. And then we'll start pinging the different writers to say, this is the exact format that we're doing this. And then you guys will just start writing as a team together. And we'll see how that goes. So I guess for now, hop into Discord, put your name in the color that you're interested in writing for, and later on, sometime next week, we'll put out a call for groups and just make sure that everybody on the platform has equal access to this. And then later in the week, I'll say, here are some of the teams. This is more specifics of what we can pay. This is what it'll be, and that sort of thing. Okay. Questions, Azaria? Shane, am I missing anything else that I need to do?
No, I think a lot of information thrown out, but I think we got some really good starting points tonight. So this is going to be good.
And I'll put out a post on Monday announcing the different teams and asking if there's any writers who want to be involved.
Okay. Is anybody horribly offended and needs to share some stuff?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I could. We're live again, so I can go take a couple people that want to ask me questions. If you guys want to go hop into the channel and either ask me stuff or complain about stuff, we can go do that.
I wanted to do a 5 booster pack giveaway.
I will send you 5 boosters. Can you just do that in the... anybody that wants to come on air, please put a 1 into chat. So literally just put the number 1 into chat if you would like to come on air. I think I'm losing voice a little. Shane, you're already on air.
Oh, sorry.
All right, let's go I can bring Torco on here. Is there anybody else that wants to hop on? If you have more things to say, you can go put in a 1. Otherwise, we're going to have a quick chat with Torco. Yeah, Laura D, we'll grab you too. I think she's unmuted. Torco, are you there?
Yes.
Hey. So you ask your question. While you're asking the question, I'm going to go send Azaria 5 packs to give away. Azaria, please just give away the packs in the text channels rather than on air. So what's your question? If you're talking, I don't hear you.
I'm not. I have to mute my other thing because it's going to drive me crazy. I'm getting an echo here. I don't have a question too much as
Don't have a question as much as that's all I heard.
I wondered how we are going to coordinate the different writers.
I'm not there yet. For right now, the coordination that I'm prepared to put together is start in the different channels. I'm going to get templates, and I don't know. Some of the employee folks might act as moderators. I don't really know. You know, like I'm clearly developing a lot of this as we're going. So, folks that want more definitive answers are going to have to be a little bit patient with me as we both kind of figure out what the audience is willing to do, get a start rolling, and then figure out, okay, what are the limitations of what we're doing now?
So we're not as, for instance, I'm on the green writing team. We're not writing anything right away.
I don't think so. I mean, the template's not there. So you can write stuff like Omi has written a ton of stuff that's in there, and a lot of that I think is good, and it starts giving us a framework of what to think around. But each different group, I'm going to put a template into that only that color can see, and you guys will start writing into that. I'll also put a timeline doc, and the timeline doc is going to be open to everybody from all the different writing teams, and people are going to be expected to go add a couple events, and those events other teams are going to be expected to respond to as they write.
Well, I also put some good ideas into that template, and I wasn't quite sure because you weren't really that specific about how much we were supposed to put in or how. But I think now that we're getting the teams together, do a lot more to flesh out the overall story. Now that, I mean, I think at first we didn't have too many people banging out their ideas on that, and I was sort of waiting for chiming in.
Yeah, the next thing you're waiting for is going to come from me, hopefully in the next 3 or 4 days, and I'm going to have a template, and everybody's going to go build off of the same template. Now, what you put in that template can be vastly different, right? When I say what is the main currency that's used, somebody might, the blue team that I think of as being this very like anarchist capitalist group, like that could be just real commerce and very simple. The red team in military dictatorship, maybe there's rationing everywhere, and as part of that rationing, you're trading guard duty hours, or you're trading, your meal ticket for the day. You're not just trading like standard money. So there's going to be a question of how does commerce work, or what is the main form of value that is transferred between people. That's going to be a common question. What the answer is can be entirely up to each different group.
Well, it would also make an impact, like say each group has its own different kind of commerce, but then there should be an overall structure for commerce if they're going to be trading.
Yeah, so at some point after we get sort of the backstories of what these groups do by themselves, then we can go up another level and sort of like I asked the map creators to go build a like a central island, and the grand tournament takes place on there, and now these groups have to go interact with one another. So
And
you're
and
adding.
that's where the evil bankers come in.
Yeah, I'm going to put some evil bankers in this. The Neoxian's actually going to be an evil banker. He will have a mana bank that is screwing with the whole universe here. So so bankers will be real. Bankers will have some bad things. It won't necessarily be, credits in a computer screen, but there will be banks and they'll be bad people. So there will be some kind of like overarching themes here that might sound familiar to some of the things that I've been posting for 2 years, but not all of that has to come in every single backstory. But we got to build some institutions into the history, so some of that will be part of the templates.
That's all the questions I have for now. I think there's a lot of wait and see. My one comment is I see everybody mentioning D&D, and I see a lot of borrowing of ideas from D&D or one particular world or another. I think this might be because if you get too close to another worldview, it's just going to become a mini version of that. And if that's what you want, that's great. But I think we should be open to getting broader ideas so that it's not so a trope story.
Hold on. The D&D stuff is only here for formatting, right? Like, no matter what group we run into, we have to describe how the magic works for them, right? So, like, how do you summon a monster? What does that look like visually? That's what I need to create. So, D&D.
Why have you already automatically adopted the D&D version? That's my question.
I don't think it is D&D. It's just like we have to go have a method for how we summon monsters. Like in D&D, there's like one class of people that could do it. Here, it's like any summoner has the ability to do that, and those summoners might not be the same race. They might not be the same people. They're not going to do it the same way. So, like, what I'm borrowing from D&D is a campaign setting guideline. Like, how do you build a campaign setting? Well, D&D has written 20 of these, and the campaign settings are totally different. One of them is this like goth horror setting. One of them is in the desert. One of them is this like rich city life. One of them is a land of dragons. Like, the setting can be whatever. I'm not trying to put rules on the setting. What I'm trying to do is build consistent parts of the setting so that, like, when I ask somebody, well, how do you trade stuff? Like, they're going to say, well, here's the system in the greens. Seeds are all that matter. And so we just trade seeds back and forth. And in the red, it's going to be, well, it's a military dictatorship. And it's all about how many guard duty hours that somebody else is going to work for you. And for the blue team, it's going to be how many doubloons do you have? Because they're a bunch of seafaring pirates or whatever. So what is totally open is deciding how that system works. What isn't open for debate is that there has to be a trade system. There has to be a way to summon monsters.
Well, of course there does, yeah.
There has to be some kind of populations and cities and whatnot. So when I say that we're borrowing from the campaign guides, I don't mean that we're like taking their worlds. I just need the categories from them so that I know what weapons are here, what kind of commerce happens, what is there a religion, how does magic work, what are the cities, how big are the cities, do people live in cities, are there outposts, what are some of the 3 main magical features that are part of that land. Like, these are just really open-ended questions, and I don't know all the open-ended questions I need, but those campaign guides have good tables of contents. So I'm like stealing the table of content format.
Okay, so you're just stealing the categories and not the specific 100% facts.
Yes. Those facts are totally different. Make them up, build your races, build your groups, build the jobs, build the whatever. You don't have to follow anything that's in D&D. The only thing that we have to follow is like the Wikipedia page of what is in that nation. How many people are there? How big is the landmass? What are the major cities? How big is the population? And then the fantasy shit of like, what's the mode of transportation? What kind of government does it have? Like, what I need is kind of a standard format. What are the major holidays of that group? Like, you know, what does everybody celebrate while there?
Just out, and I was thinking about that, the major forms of transportation. There should probably be a limit or a guideline on that, because transportation up to the writer, one nation that is highly advanced and has a huge number of days or whatever, and another that's just very basic. So you want to make sure that that matches somehow, because have mismatched.
Well, I think there's ways around
what I
that.
mean?
Well, like what I want to do as a writer is make this game about balance. And so look, they have you know, it's kind of like the shit. There's we live in an age where there's infinite information, but nobody has any wisdom. So like what I want to do is look at, all right, great. You have designed this really fantastic transportation system, makes it really easy for everybody. They get there in 2 seconds. And what does that do? Okay, now nobody has any community because they're not all walking to the same place anymore. Now they just spend their time like you know, practicing little cantrips in their hands, and they don't talk to anybody, and it changes the culture because they're now not kind of coming together as groups. So whatever special powers that these teams give to their communities, I'm going to do my best to find the weaknesses and exploit that in some of these storylines. Of like, okay, so a great example, Agrodius the Lightbringer, he's going to be in this white realm, and it's going to be this ivory tower, and we're going to have kind of this academic setting. You know, they're going to be really, really super intelligent people, but they can't tie their fucking shoe. And they can't come together on decisions because everybody's so important and everybody is so high and mighty on themselves that like it's hard to get consensus. So like you could make them the group of the smartest people ever, but then we're going to say, okay, they can't work together because everybody thinks they're smarter than one another. All right, they have the best form of transportation ever, but now it ruins some of the social interactions that they have. They have really rich commerce, but now they're obsessed with money, and they have a really hard time making moral decisions that don't involve absolute freedom. So like they're going to sell their kids drugs or something. Like we're going to find ways to whatever special power and emphasis you give it, we're going to find, well, what's the flip side of the coin that makes that shitty? And
It's a lot like Discworld.
I don't know what Discworld is.
I was just making a joke. It sounds like you're describing the Unseen University with all the very smart wizards who can't tie their shoelaces.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was a professor. I know thousands of these people. So like we just got to go find the balance, and that balance doesn't have to be, you know, in D&D you talk about min-maxing. So like your wizard has an intelligence of 18, but a wisdom of 6. So like the guy might be the most intelligent thing ever, but then might not know that he shouldn't cast that really powerful spell in the middle of a city, right? So like we're gonna find ways to go balance the strengths that you build with some of their foils.
Got it. All right.
Okay, I lost it. Are there anybody else that would like to come online and come talk to us?
Yeah, what was her name? I think it was Laura D.
Oh, Laura D. Is Laura D? Laura D is right there. Toriko, thanks for coming on. I hope we answered your questions. You're swell, and I'm gonna punch you back to the group chat. Sound okay? Oh, Laura D ran away. Laura, I'm gonna drag you into live on air.
I'm here.
All right, welcome back. How are things?
They're good.
All right.
I hope my question's quick. I was just wondering if you could share, like, already about how people move, how players move through the world. Like, is it do they definitely go to water first, then fire, then air, or whatever?
That hasn't been decided. You know, J3 Caesar and DK Art or DKS Art are both working on the flat map of this world. And so what my plan is to build in on the campaign page, we're going to put that map. And then we can click into any one of the colors and it'll bring up a second map that is an expanded map. And inside of that expanded map is going to live all the kind of different points that you can go to. And in that going to series within a color, I do actually think that that's going to be in a set pattern because it's hard to build a story where it's completely like just go in any order. But I don't know that for a fact. But I imagine that each different color will have a campaign. Each campaign will have its own map. So there's going to be 6 sub-maps, and each one of those should have like 6 or 10 places you can visit. And I don't know how many encounters we'll do for each one of those, but that's what this is going to look like. And so you'll literally click on the map, or you'll click on the campaign sort of at the top tab. So it'll say card packs, my collection, monster market, and then you'll hit campaign. So you'll go into the campaign and then you'll say, let's go do the blue campaign today. And at blue campaign, you'll start with early easy fights, and then you'll kill all those people or defeat them or run into the different challenges that we provide to you. And you'll move through kind of a distinct, it'll be land 1, land 2, land 3, city 4. Now you're going to be at an obelisk 5, the vortex 6, something 7, and then boss fight 8, something like that. So like I do think that once you're in the territory, it'll be linear, but which one you start doing should be up to you.
Right. So each land has its own story arc. Characters have their they get stripped out as they level up.
Yep. And I imagine, it might happen. So like if somebody buys a lot of cards, they can probably kill all the boss monsters on day 1. And so they'll just kind of go through they might go all the way through white, all the way through blue, all the way through green, and just kind of kick ass all the way through. If you're starting and you didn't buy a lot of cards, all of these quests should go provide you with like partial packs or help build your deck out, or eventually help give you items, because we'll allow items to equip into monsters to go buff the individual monsters. So maybe as you move through these, you'll get benefits and cards and things that'll help you. So you'll go through, but the first fights, level 1 in all 6 realms, will be easy fights, and then you'll get to level 8 and they'll all be hard. So if you're just starting, you might say, oh, I'm going to do all the level 1 fights in all 6 realms. And if you've maxed the shit out of your cards, you might say, oh, I want to beat blue, beat red, beat green. And the kid that didn't spend a lot of money, they might actually have to play more of the game before they could even try to beat the boss monster.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering actually, is like, probably my main frame of reference was World of Warcraft, but like you're in the newbie area for that land for a while. Or another way to do it is you can go to the newbie area for each land for a while.
Yeah, I imagine that new players are going to switch between newbie levels of all 6 territories. And then, or maybe I'll just call them splinters, because this is the splinter land. So you have the choice of, the new players, I imagine, will say, all right, I need to level up my cards. These are the easiest fights. So I'm going to do the level 1 fights for each of the 6. And Thierstikin, who has a bunch of money and bought some cards and is a badass, he says, well, these easy fights are easy. I just want to kill the boss. So he's going to say, I'm going to kill everything in blue, kill everything in red, kill everything in green. And he can kind of like march his way through the campaign because he's already maxed out a deck.
Well, I think that's all my questions. I'm working on. I was one of the 3D map people, so I'm kind of just looking at the big broad story. But
Yeah, eventually we'll get to the prophecy. So
Hey, you were about to get cut off, so it's time to
Yeah.
wrap.
I think I'm getting cut off already because it just switched to midnight. Anyways, for the folks in the for the folks here that are listening to the recording, thanks for coming to this. You've been listening to the Peace Academy or the Monster Academy. You guys are swell. Thank you for being interested in this. The take home for right now is get into the other Discord and sign up for the team that you would like to write with. I don't know how much money you'll be provided. You will get some exposure. Hopefully you're doing this for the love of this, not necessarily for making fortunes, because I can't promise that yet. I'm going to provide templates to everybody, hopefully in the next couple days, and we're going to use those templates to build out a story that can be quite different from all the teams. I'm also going to put together sort of a major timeline. I will supply a handful of events. Everybody from the different templates will supply some smaller events that are important to their realm, and we'll have different takes on those stories. Did I miss anything, Azaria or Shane?
No, that's
No,
that's the great take home.
sounds good, and you're all lovely people.
All right. Thank you. And thanks for being here. You guys are fun. And hey, if you want to be in the game, there's a contest running right now. Please go join it. You've been listening to MSB Waves Radio. I'm Agrod, your host and creator and founder of Steem Monsters, along with Yabamat, who is sort of the technical lead and just an all-around genius when it comes to programming. I'm joined by Azaria, who's one of the first team members of this, and Kevin, a.k.a. Shane, a.k.a. Swelker 101, who is one of the witnesses that's part of the Minnow Support Project and is getting dragged more and more into the realm of Steem Monsters. All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Night.